Good morning, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the podcast, The Endurance of Labor Laws. I am your lovely host, Lesley Sullivan, and today is episode 84, and we are going to take a look at the Superfund sites in the state of Illinois. But first of all, let me give a big shout out to my listeners because you guys are awesome. So let me go to my list here. So a big shout out to Virginia, Texas, my lovely neighbor, Oklahoma, New York, Florida. Hey Florida, how you doing? Oregon, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Manitoba. Good to see you again there. In terms of countries, the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Germany. Awesome. Good to see you. Oh, and South Africa. There's that one as well. Excuse me. Okay, so first of all, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. So let me go to my list here. So I need to make a correction. I was wrong on when the Clean Air Act, or who was president when that was passed. It was not President Richard Nixon. He was in 73 with the EPA. In terms of 1963, the president was JFK, which is John F. Kennedy. And he was assassinated in his term, unfortunately. He was a very wonderful man. I think he would have been a great president. If anything, I think he would have made a great president to run a second term. But unfortunately, he was tragically assassinated, just horrible. And so his VP took over. And so I don't know exactly when all these were passed in terms of during what would have been considered JFK's presidency, because there were a lot of things that JFK had a lot of ideas. He was working with quite a few people. And so there were things that were originally John F. Kennedy's ideas, but I think Lyndon Johnson, was his VP. He got things passed, and then he had ideas of his own, when he took over, because when President Kennedy died, the VP got sworn in as soon as possible in order to lead this country. So it was a very chaotic time in the 60s, and especially in 1963. So my apologies for getting that incorrect. Again, I'm not always familiar with all of our history, but I was getting my years mixed up, 63 and 73. And then I wanted to read to you about who can vote and who cannot vote. So, because I'd mentioned that I don't agree with it that there are some people that cannot vote in this country, even though they are a citizen. So I looked up who can vote and who is not allowed to vote. And from what I researched and from what I understood, because some of this makes sense and some of it does not. So basically the general rule for voting requirements is that voter must be age 18 or older on the day of the election. So it has to be on the day of the election that you're age 18 or older. You must be registered to vote. It says all states except North Dakota, so I don't know if that has changed because I'm just going off of what I can find online. And mind you, what's online is not 100% accurate. So then it says voter must meet their state's residency requirements. So, there are some things that, sometimes people are here illegally and other times people are here legally. But just because someone is here legally does not mean that they can legally vote. So, for example, if you are trying to get citizenship, well, guess what? You cannot vote. Even if you live here, if you do not have citizenship, you are not authorized to vote. So, here's the thing. This is what it says from findlaw.com. So it says in some states, well, the question was, can I vote if I am a convicted felon? That's the question. The answer is in some states, yes. Each state determines whether an individual is disenfranchised, meaning deprived of the right to vote after serving time. In most states, felons cannot vote if they are, number one, in jail or in prison, number two, under the authority of the Department of Corrections, also known as DOC, or disqualified due to a state or federal court order. It goes on to say, in Maine and Virginia, convicted felons can vote even if they are incarcerated. In some states, individuals convicted of felonies can restore their right to vote after they are done serving time. For example, in Washington State, an individual must register to vote or re-register after serving time in jail, prison, or with the DOC. Remember, the only state that does not require voter registration is North Dakota. I don't know if that's changed because I don't know how often this website is up to date. So if I see something that's contrary, as usual, I will let you know and correct that as we go along. It says here, immigrants and voting in the United States. It says all natural-born citizens and those who have gone through naturalization can vote in United States federal elections. This means that only immigrants who have gone through naturalization receive the right to vote. So basically, you have to be legal, okay? What is naturalization? Naturalization is a process that grants citizenship to people born outside the United States. Some of the many requirements of naturalization include, number one, must be 18 years or older, must be a permanent resident for at least 5 years or have a green card, be able to read, write, and speak basic English. So those are some of the things that, some things I agree with, some things I don't. And here's what I don't agree with. I think that if you are a citizen of the United States, I don't care if you are a felon or not, you have the right to vote. I think the only way that you should be restricted from having the right to vote is if you're a traitor. You know, for example, you turned against the United States and you were found guilty of that crime. I think people that are traitors, I personally wish that they would be, what's it called? Not exported, deported. Try to think of the right word. I think they should be kicked out of the United States if they're a traitor, and I think that they should do time in a prison in another country. That's my personal opinion. And so that's just how I look at things, because I think that if you don't like the United States and you are convicted of being a traitor to the United States, number one, I don't know why you're still here. Number two, I don't know why, if you're a traitor, why you would even want to be involved in our elections, unless it's to try and infiltrate and try and ruin them, which, you know, who knows the exact reasons why people do that sometimes, but it's one of those things that I think that if someone has bad intentions, and it's proven that they have bad intentions against the United States, that their citizenship should be revoked, they should be kicked out of the United States, and they should be serving time in prison in another country. You know, they will miss our prisons, because our prisons are actually quite nice compared to other countries, so maybe people will think twice before going up against the United States, would be my guess. But I did want to clear up that information and correct my mistake of getting the presidents wrong in terms of what year they were serving their term. Again, my apologies. But let's go ahead and start on these Superfund sites in the state of Illinois. Okay, so Illinois, you guys are doing awesome. Your list is not huge. So what I will do is I will go ahead and go over the ones that are currently active Superfund sites in the state of Illinois, and because their list is not huge, I will go ahead and list off the ones that have been deleted from the National Priorities List, which again, if you are new to this podcast, the National Priorities List is a list of Superfund sites that were deemed so horrible and so hazardous that they were put on a priority list. Now, the ones that are on a priority list, there's like a little over maybe 1,300 or 1,400 of them on there, but technically we have about 40,000 Superfund sites littered across the United States. The ones that are the worst, meaning the most hazardous, the most dangerous, these are the ones that were put on the National Priorities List. These are the ones that we are discussing in this podcast. So, whenever we say that that it has been deleted and it has been removed from the National Priorities List, it means that it is cleaned up and good to go. It is no longer a hazardous waste site. It has been repaired, renewed, and basically has been given back to the environment one way or another, which is always good. So it's livable, it is sustainable, and it is safe. It is not going to cause any health problems, whether for the environment, which includes us, you and me, human beings, mammals, and it is also safe for wildlife and plants and things of that nature. So let's go ahead and get started on this puppy here. The first one located in the state of Illinois is the Adams County Quincy landfills, number 2 and number 3. It is located in the county of Adams, and let me see if it tells me the population. The population is 65,737 people live there. It doesn't tell me the reason for this Superfund site, but I do know that it was added to the list. Let's see here. That's going to be August 30th, 1990. The next one that is current and active in terms of Superfund sites in the state of Illinois is A&F Material Reclaiming, Inc. It doesn't tell me a whole lot about that. It is located in the county of Cumberland. Cumberland County, as of 2010, has 11,048 people, so that can go up or go down in terms of population. So let's see here. This one was added to the National Priorities List. That's going to be September 8th, 1983. The next one is Savannah Army Depot activity. It says here, Savannah Army Depot was a 13,000-acre installation located on the eastern bank of the Mississippi River in Carroll and Joe Davies counties. Let's see, it says it's around 7 miles north of Savannah, Illinois. Let's see, it was opened in 1917 as a proving and testing facility for weapons developed. Let's see what it's going to tell me. Hold on just a second. I clicked away from it. Developed at Rock Island Arsenal. In 1921, it became a weapons depot. The United States Environmental Protection Agency listed the depot as a Superfund site in 1989. Now, I just want to give a heads up here. A lot of these Superfund sites were added in the 80s. And the reason for that is because, as we discussed in previous podcasts, in terms of the environment, people were very concerned about the environment for decades before the 80s. But there was not a lot in place to identify what exactly the problems were and how to correct those problems. So, I would think in terms of the environment, from what we're seeing within the United States in regards to, kind of pre-EPA technicalities here, I would say that rules, laws, and regulations really started to vamp up and be passed in the 50s and 60s, as we have seen. The EPA was created and founded in the 70s. And then the Superfund PAC or Superfund site list was created. It kind of got revved up in the 70s, but then it really started to get going in the 80s. So that's why you'll notice that a lot of these listing dates of when they were added to the national priorities list is in the 80s, because that's when they started to identify when things were really bad and severe. Now, mind you, there are a whole bunch of other Superfund sites across the United States, but not all of them are a priority. So, needless to say, we have a lot of work to do. We can get it done, and we can get things repaired and renewed, and we can help the environment get back to what it's supposed to be, right? So, needless to say, there are a lot of things that were done at the turn of the century that they may or may not have known was hazardous. But either way, there are a lot of Superfund sites that, maybe they were opened, early 1900s or something, and then, maybe by the 1930s, 40s, or 50s, they went ahead and closed them down because they realized, hey, this is above over our head. It's above our head, in terms of what's going on here. We need to close it down because something's going on. We need to do more research and development and figure out what's happening here. So, just remember that at one point everything was new, whether it's weaponry, whether it's toxic substances or organic substances or inorganic, whatever the case may be. So we're learning as we go along. So that's a good thing. It's just that it was kind of slow in the beginning because we're trying to identify what is considered a hazard and what's the level of hazardousness to these sites. And are they livable? Are they sustainable? Those kinds of things. So it's kind of like whenever you're starting a new job, you're learning everything brand new, brand spanking new when you start a new career or a new job, right? So even though you do have experience as a worker, or maybe you were in that industry before, or, you've worked other jobs as an adult, it doesn't matter what your experience is sometimes, because regardless of what you've done in the past, everything is new to you when you start something new. But your experience definitely does help you to navigate your new job, your new venture, and your new research and development. That's kind of what is happening here. People were not ignorant back in the day. They're not ignorant now. They were not ignorant back then. It's just that, there are things that, the best phrase I can come up with, or that I'm reminded of, is you only know what you know, right? So that's why I always tell people, especially in these podcasts, at one point all of this stuff was new. So they're having to navigate uncharted waters. I mean, if you think about it, this is just a side note. At one point, we did not have maps. Like the globe, an atlas, we had not really discovered all the oceans. Like we're talking back hundreds of years, right? Hundreds upon hundreds of years, right? So we take for granted just knowing where countries are located. We take for granted which ocean is which body of water is which. Because, hundreds upon hundreds of years ago, the theory or the thinking about the planet was that it's flat, and that if you sail too far out, you will literally fall off into oblivion, That's why some people did not venture out in their ships. And we're talking about during the times of monarchies and things like that, like way far back in history, right? So, needless to say, whenever you had sailors, like for example, Christopher Columbus, which he's been demonized horribly, and he was not a bad man. He was not horrible. He was sent on a mission. He was hired by, I think it was by the Spanish monarchy, to go out and find new territory. I mean, that was just what you did back then. So there were waters and lands that he was navigating that had never been chartered before, had never been navigated before. So it's similar to this in that when something's new, it's new. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page and not demonizing people, because to me, it is wrong to demonize someone for something that is not even demonic. Like, we need to be clear about what is right and what is wrong. Do we have Superfund sites? Yes. Are they tragically bad? Yes. But were they created out of malice? No. Not a single one. These things happen. You know, was there some stupidity on some? Sure. Was there some negligence? Sure. I mean, I think that is a possibility. But I think we need to be mindful that these people were people just like you and me. They show up to work, you know, the 9 to 5, 8 to 5, maybe some people worked even longer than that, especially if they worked in the oil and gas industry or if they worked for the federal government, especially with site testing and things like that. Their hours are just crazy. They're all over the board, right? They're all over the place. You know, especially if you're working like a 12 or 24-hour shift. I mean, that's just how some jobs are. So we need to just keep in mind that there's a reason why these sites were identified, and it was not to demonize people or companies. It was to repair and renew the face of the earth. It was to get things back to what they were and what they're supposed to be, so that way it could be safe to live there, regardless of whether there are people living there or just wildlife or plant life or natural life, whatever the case may be. So I just want to be clear, because a lot of what we're talking about is really serious stuff. It's really toxic chemicals and things of that nature. But just know that, you know, what we know today, the reason why we have the technology today and the reason why we are able to discuss these things like we can today is because of the data and the research and development that was completed and done and thought of by previous people. Most of these people that were part of these Superfund sites are dead. They have passed away. Whether it's because of being exposed to these Superfund sites or maybe they passed away from natural causes, you know, whatever the case may be. But here's the thing. We need to be respectful of people's work and the good things that they did. And realize that, you know, whenever you're doing something brand new, it's literally brand new. So it's not the same as holding someone accountable to someone that, you know, knew full well what they were doing and they just maliciously did the wrong thing. You know, there are different modes of operandi, I guess is what you can say. You know, like for example, you know, there's a difference between, I mean, I hate to use this extreme, but I think it really makes it clear about this. There's a difference in the intention, right? Like there's a difference between murder, manslaughter, you know, like, you know, accidental deaths, you know, things like that. Like there's a difference in that, and you can see that, you know, not only in court cases that go to court, but also when you're dealing with people's health insurance and when you're dealing with life insurance. So, for example, I am a licensed insurance agent in the state of Oklahoma. Excuse me. So, as a licensed insurance agent, I think I got the hiccups. We have to be careful who we are selling life insurance to and what's the intent behind it. So, for example, I've never forgotten this cold case that was on TV. It was not in Oklahoma. But there were these two older ladies, and I say older, they were elderly. And so what they were doing was they were targeting homeless men. And they were either convincing them to marry them or they were convincing them to get life insurance policies. And a lot of these homeless men, they had mental issues. They had, they basically were not on their meds, and that's why they were homeless. So, but these women, they were targeting the weak and the innocent, and they went after the vulnerable, and they got caught. So that is insurance fraud, right? So you have to look at what is the intent. Well, the intent was murder with these two wicked, evil women, and they have since gone to jail. I don't remember if they got the death penalty or not. I don't know because I don't remember what state that took place in, but I've never forgotten that case. And I thought that is so disturbing. Absolutely disturbing. But anyway, the intent behind them getting these guys life insurance policies was so that they could inherit once they bump off these guys. It's completely different if you're married. Let's say you're a man and you're married to your wife and you have like 2 or 3 kids. Well, more than likely your employer is going to offer you free life insurance, right? So that's just part of a cushy deal that a lot of employers provide their employees. There are some perks that are just automatically included in your employee benefit package, right? So more than likely, 9 times out of 10, the employee is going to sign up for that life insurance if on the chance, he might get hurt on the job, or maybe he gets in a car wreck on the way home and, his wife is now a widow, his kids now have no father. What was the intent behind him signing up for life insurance? It was to protect his family. His wife had nothing to do, with him signing up for that. You know what I mean? Like, she didn't say, oh, sign up for that so that, when you get bumped off, I'll get all your money. No. That's not how that works in that situation. So it's very similar here when we are looking at what is the intent? What's the reason for these Superfund sites? Almost every single one of these Superfund sites across the United States was unintentional, non-intentional, and accidental. Very few are malicious. Like, there's only a handful I can think of off the top of my head that were actually negligent. And I can't think of any of them that were malicious. I haven't found any so far. The only ones I can think of that were negligent were ones that maybe they purchased the wrong permit, or they did not purchase the correct permit, or they just dumped someplace their hazardous waste because they weren't sure what to do, or they didn't care to do the right thing. So, but there's a difference in what is the intent, even though the outcome may be the same. Meaning we have a hazardous waste site. So, just to make sure that we're on the same playing field here and that we're acknowledging what is actually happening here, because I think it's wrong to jump to conclusions. It's kind of like the difference between a good cop and a bad cop. A bad cop, they're always going to jump to the wrong conclusions, and they're always going to be bent towards incorrect opinions, incorrect assumptions, and you have no idea what their true intention is except to not do good. A good cop, they will properly investigate things. They may have an idea about who did what and why, but they know that if they can't prove it, then they don't have, number one, they don't have proof, and number two, they can't take that to court. Because if they do take it to court and they're not sure about things, then there's a really high possibility they could wrongfully arrest an innocent person and put the wrong person in jail. And then the person who actually committed the crime is out there living whatever kind of life they want, but yet the innocent is stuck in prison for something they didn't do. So that's why I'm always cautious about doing due diligence and making sure that we know what exactly this is, and to not jump to conclusions, because I feel like in our society right now, and when I say in our society, I'm talking about the United States because I haven't lived anyplace else just yet in terms of countries. In the United States, it's kind of touchy-feely right now, and people are just so offended. Absolutely offended. And now that I think about that, I want to mention this book. This is just a side note. I want to mention a book that I think you guys should read. It's really good. It's called Unoffendable. Let me go to my stack of books here because I read a lot. It's called Unoffendable. It says How Just One Change Can Make All Life Better, and it's by Brant Hansen, Hansen. If you have not read that book, you definitely need to read it. Because I think our planet and our societies in general would be a lot better if people were not just super offended all the time and would just be chill and be calm and be peaceful. So that's why I'm always trying to make sure that, that we're not jumping to conclusions, and that I just kind of, I say it like it is, but I say it in a polite, kind way. And I just want to make sure that everything is on the up and up, because the last thing I want to do is for someone to listen to this podcast and just overreact to every little thing. Of course, I'm not responsible for other people's behavior because, the only behavior that I can be responsible for is myself. So it's the same for you. The only behavior you can be responsible for is yourself. At the same time, I want to make sure to be just everything be on the up and up, because I look at it this way: all my decisions, they have to be moral and legal, and I like to make sure that if I'm going to be speaking or if I'm going to be presenting material, that number one, it's true, and number two, that I'm delivering it in such a way that is cool, calm, and couth, and it's just being genuine and being kind and respectful for all peoples, regardless of whether they are living or whether they have already passed away. Because I do think it is important to be respectful of people at all times as much as possible, especially when you disagree with someone. That's when you really need to be respectful of someone, is when you disagree with them, because that's when it's very easy to be disrespectful. But anyway, back to this puppy here. So the Savannah Army Depot activity, that's this current Superfund site that is active in the state of Illinois. It is in the county of Joe Davies. And Joe Davies, as of 2010, has 22,678 people. The issue with this one is soils are contaminated with metals, pesticides, explosives, lead-based paint chips, and PAHs. Groundwater is contaminated with various pesticides, explosives, solvents, and petroleum-related contaminants. Sediments in surface water are contaminated with various explosives, PAHs, and metals. Multiple areas throughout the facility contain munitions and explosives of concern, unexploded ordnance, whatever that means. I'm guessing that it could possibly be a live round. I don't know what that means, I'm guessing. But this one was added to the national priorities list. That's going to be March 13th, 1989. The next Superfund site in the state of Illinois is Outboard Marine Corporation. Let me see if it tells me anything about that one. It says Outboard Marine Corporation, also known as OMC, was a maker of Evinrude, Johnson, and Gale outboard motors and many different brands of boats. It was a multi-billion-dollar Fortune 500 corporation. Evinrude began in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1907. Okay, interesting information there. This one is located in Lake County. Lake County has 714,342 people. The issue with this one is engine construction plant released hydraulic fluids into the ground and harbor, which contained PCB. Dredging of the harbor and soil removal have been completed, and contamination of the isolated soil continues. During cleanup, it was discovered that the site contained additional contamination on the former, I think it's Waukegan Coke plant property. Soil removal there is also complete. This one was added to the list September 8th, 1983. The next one is Johns Manville Corporation. Let's see what it tells me about this one. It says Johns Manville is an American company based in Denver, Colorado, that manufactures insulation, roofing materials, and engineered products. Let's see here. For most of the 20th century, the then titled Johns Manville Corporation was the global leader in the manufacture of asbestos. So now I see why there's a problem. Okay, so this one is located in the county of Lake. Again, it has a little over 714,000 people living there. The issue with this one is an asbestos disposal site. The site has been covered in less than 24 inches of soil, but areas outside the Johns Manville property have problems with asbestos contamination, including other beachfront areas near the Waukegan and Zion. The site will be redeveloped as a soccer and baseball complex. Really? So are little kids going to play there and get exposed to asbestos? I hope not. That's very concerning. Wow. If I was a parent and I lived in that area, I would definitely say no to this. If you're in that area, please do a vote on that, because I think that's a problem. This one was added to the list September 8th, 1983. See, because here's the thing. They're talking about redeveloping it, but yet it's not off the national priorities list. So it's not cleaned up. It's not completely cleaned up. So it hasn't, it's not safe. So if it's not safe, then why redevelop it? Maybe some people don't understand my concern with this. So the first thing I thought of was, whenever I'm walking through my parents' neighborhood, and let's say, for example, I'm walking my sister's dog because he's there with them right now. I always make sure that he does not walk on people's lawns because there's so many people that use pesticides. You know, like the lawn treatment people that spray that green stuff everywhere and it looks so fake and so tacky. I'm just like, do you realize that you're killing wildlife and you're exposing yourself, your lungs, and your skin cells to very toxic chemicals, but also whenever an animal, like your dog or your cat, whenever they walk through that lawn, they are absorbing that chemical through the pads on their paws, because their pads, that's skin, right? So like, for example, our skin, it absorbs anything and everything, whatever you put on your skin. An example of this is the nicotine patch, birth control patch. Let's say, for example, if you have motion sickness, there's this drug that you can rub on the insides of your wrist, you know, on the skin there. Like, instead of putting perfume there, you put this, it's either an ointment or an oil that you can put there. It's a medication so that you don't get seasick. Well, that gets absorbed into the bloodstream. So everything that touches your skin and gets absorbed through the skin goes into the bloodstream. So being that we know that to be true, why would you want anyone playing on dirt and like touching that soil and it's been contaminated by asbestos and it's not cleaned up yet? Like, if I would not want my dog or cat walking across that field, why would I want little kids or people or even adults? You know, I'm not saying adults don't matter, they do, but here's the thing. There are a lot of things that people don't think about. Like, if it could hurt my dog or my cat, then it's not good. If it can hurt my child, then it's not good. If it can hurt me, it's not good. So it's one of those things, we really need to take this into consideration here. So the next Superfund site is Yeoman Creek Landfill. It is also located in the county of Lake. It says the lack of a bottom liner allowed leachate to enter the local groundwater. So that one was added to the list March 31st, 1989. The next one is HOD Landfill. It is also located in the county of Lake. The issue with this one is groundwater was contaminated with vinyl chloride. Let me double check something real quick. Okay, I was just double checking something. Okay, so this one was added to the list February 21st, 1990. The next one is Kemetco. This one is located in the county of Madison. Let me see what it tells me about this. Okay. Kemetco was formerly one of the largest United States refiners of copper from recycled or residual sources. No wonder this one is an issue. Okay, so Madison County has 264,776 people living there. The issue with this one is site contains over 450,000 cubic yards of waste slag and over 60,000 cubic yards of zinc oxide. The materials contain elevated levels of cadmium, copper, and lead. Sediments in nearby wetlands and Long Lake also have elevated levels of the same metals. This one was added to the list March 4th, 2010. The next one is Joliet Army Ammunition Plant Load Assembly Packing Area. Let's see what it says here. Not much. It was opened in 1940 during World War II, so obviously we're dealing with munitions there and things of that nature. It is located in the county of Will. Will County has, as of 2010, 677,560 people living there. The issue at this site is site of federal ammunitions plant polluted with base neutral acids, metals, nitro aromatics, PCBs, and petroleum hydrocarbon. Physical cleanup has been completed, but site remains on the national priorities list. So just because the physical cleanup has been completed, that doesn't mean that it's not still contaminated, because they still have to do site testing. So that's probably why this one is still on the list. It was added to the list March 13th, 1989. The next one is Joliet Army Ammunition Plant Manufacturing Area. So we first had the assembly area, now we have the manufacturing area, also located at the same site in the same county of Will. The issue with this one is soil contaminated with explosives and metals, primarily TNT, tetryl, DNT, and lead. Groundwater plumes contaminated with explosives, VOCs, and metals. This one was added to the list July 22nd, 1987. The next one is Acme Solvent Reclaiming Inc., Morrisontown Plant. This one is located in Winnebago County. And Winnebago County has 285,350 people living there. The issue with this one is the site was used as a drum storage and disposal area for waste generated by Acme's solvent distillation units. From 1960 to 1970, the site consisted of 7 waste disposal lagoons and open storage of 10,000 to 15,000 drums. Testing of groundwater found it to contain volatile organic compounds, also known as VOCs. Soil sampling identified VOCs. I think that's phthalates. I'm not sure how to pronounce that word. Polychlorinated biphenyls, also known as PCBs, and metals including lead and chromium. This one was added to the list September 8th, 1983. Okay, let me go through the deleted sites, which means they're cleaned up and good to go. They have been returned back to nature. The first one is, it's either Yada or Elada Energy Company, and this one was located in the county of Alexander. The issue with this one was liquid oily waste found on site were contaminated by VOCs, PCBs, and heavy metals including lead, arsenic, and zinc. On-site surface soils were contaminated with PCBs and heavy metals. This one was cleaned up and good to go as of January 8th, 2001. The next one that is cleaned up and good to go is Peterson Sand and Gravel. It was located in the county of Lake. The issue with this one is the site of illegal dumping of paint, waste, and solvents. Cleanup was completed and it was removed from the National Priorities List in 1991 and redeveloped as the Independence Grove Forest Preserve. Okay. That's actually really impressive that it's cleaned up and good to go, and it is now a forest preserve. That's impressive. So that one was cleaned up and good to go as of February 11th, 1991. And that is it for the state of Illinois. So there we go on that. So let me see what our next topic will be. Let me go to my list here. So one thing I did want to mention here, and I think I've mentioned this before, is that I've noticed over the years, especially here in the Bible Belt states, people are quick to, how do I describe this? They're quick to say, oh, well, we got to do it for the kids. Like whenever they're talking about safety or cleanup or just, any kind of passing of a bill or something like that. And I'm like, me personally, I'm like, what about the adults? Like, at what point do you tell people they don't matter anymore? So, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that they think, well, we got to do it for the kids. It's like, well, here's the thing. If you're doing it for the kids, then you're also doing it for the adults. And here's what I can't stand about the whole, oh, we got to do it for the kids kind of thing. Whenever you have that attitude of we got to do it for the kids, then you're completely ignoring all the adults on the planet. And you're making it seem like they don't matter when they do. So to me, that's very unfortunate because it's not right to think that way. And so, what's interesting is that whenever someone would tell me, oh, we got to do it for the kids, it was almost always because they were wanting to raise money for their kid or someone else's kid. I'm just like, you know what? This is not appropriate. So whenever I get concerned about children, it's not because, oh, we got to do it for the kids. My concern is in terms of equality. Meaning, if we're doing it for the kids, then we're also doing it for the adults. Because if something is toxic or hazardous for a child, then it's also very toxic or hazardous for the adults, as well as the animal life, the plant life, everybody, right? So I've just noticed over the years, especially here in the Bible Belt states, people are so obsessed with children and with grandkids. They're just obsessed with babies here. And I'm like, that will only take you so far. See, because here's the thing. I've noticed that when people are just all about the kids, like to the extreme, that it's like kids can do no wrong. And we have a lot of spoiled, rotten, ill-behaved children now. And guess what? A lot of these spoiled, rotten, ill-behaved children are now growing up, and they are now young adults. They are now in their late teens, early 20s. So needless to say, there are some people in that age bracket that have not been raised correctly. They don't always have a good work ethic. And I'll give an example. I think I've said this, I think I've shared this story before. Let me get a drink of water real quick. Okay, so this was a couple of summers ago, if I remember correctly. I was shopping for, I believe I was shopping for soil or a new type of plant food for my plant that I had at the time, because it was a potted plant. And so just in case you don't know about potted plants do need to be fed plant food specifically for them, because if a plant is not planted in the ground, then they're not getting all the nutrients that they need, because if you put a plant in a pot, they eat up and soak up all the nutrients in that soil, and then once that soil is depleted, it is no longer feeding them. So that plant is no longer able to thrive. So that's why you have to take good care of your potted plants, because they're not planted in the ground. They are contained and they are staying in the same soil that you have always put them in. Nothing against you for keeping them in the soil, that's great. But here's the thing, you have to continue to feed them. And, there's this one fertilizing soil that I really like that is, I think my screen acted up. Hold on a second. Okay. The screen on my phone acted up, and I'm recording from my phone, so it was doing something weird. But anyway, there was one food that I liked. I think it was Osmocott. The ones I don't like are those stupid little beads. They look like little pearls. They never completely dissolved, and my plant suffered. I mean, it was horrible plant food. Anyway, so I switched to a plant food. I think it's by Miracle Grow, if I remember correctly. And it's blue, and it dissolves in water. So I would feed my plant like every 2 to 3 weeks based on the schedule it had for being outside. But then once you bring your potted plants inside, you don't give them as much fertilizer or plant food during the fall and winter months, because they're inside. So they're not getting exposure to the sun, they're getting exposure to artificial light as opposed to natural light, because there's a difference in how they process that light. It still keeps them alive, but nothing is as good as natural sunlight, right? But anyway, I had gone to Lowe's, and I think I ran into somebody that I knew there, and it was an older lady, someone that I knew through a family friend or something, and she was really frustrated about one of the experiences she had at Lowe's. I said, well, what happened? And she said that she needed help lifting a bag of fertilizer, a really heavy bag. And the girls that were working there at Lowe's, they would typically go get one of the guys, because they can't hardly lift these bags because they're really heavy, right? Well, what these young guys were doing, and they're like late teens, early 20s, what they would do is they would get a job with Lowe's, and then they would just disappear. They would clock in, but then they didn't want to do any heavy lifting. They didn't want to help anybody. They couldn't stand old people. They didn't want to help anyone with stuff out to their car. I'm just like, what do they think their job was? I mean, it was ridiculous. So then a manager told me, actually, one of the managers at Lowe's told me that they were having problems finding good guys to hire, like especially young men, because they're so lazy. They're just slothful, like they just want the paycheck, but when you need their help, they just disappear. It's ridiculous. And then some of them will inappropriately hit on young women. It's really weird. I'm like, okay, there's an appropriate way to hit on someone and an inappropriate way to hit on somebody. But what's really weird is you've got these lazy fat slobs that are young men working at Lowe's. They're just trying to collect a paycheck, but yet they think they're going to get laid by hitting on these young women, and they don't stand a chance. It's like, really, like if this woman just saw that you're totally dissing her grandmother and you're not willing to help lift a bag of fertilizer or even soil, do you really think she's even going to hold your hand? I don't think so. So it's just kind of like, wake up and smell the roses here, people. So it's one of those things that, those people I'm talking about, that their age range and their behavior problem, the reason why, first of all, they're behaving like that is because, number one, they choose to act that way. Okay? It's a choice. They can choose to be a better, kinder person, but they choose not to. But also, it comes down to the way that they were raised. If they're raised that they're all that in a bag of chips, and that, they can get a phone whenever they want, they can just stay home and watch TV all the time, they can be online all the time, they can play all these stupid video games. I mean, you're basically you're basically dealing with a bunch of kids that never really grew up. Because even though they're over the age of 18, it's like they're still a little kid. I remember when I turned 18, it was very clear and definitive, you are an adult now, so suck it up. Like it was just very black and white, yes and no kind of thing. But also, I looked forward to being an adult. Like I couldn't wait to register to vote. I couldn't wait, I just couldn't wait to get out there and live my life. But now we have kids that they're moving back in with their parents. And it's just ridiculous. It's just, so I just want you to be aware that whenever I'm saying, hey, this is really harmful for children, I'm also concerned about adults as well. Because I don't want there to be any confusion with that because, for the longest time I thought, man, why are so many people so concerned about kids? It's just like, I thought it was odd. I was like, well, is there a greater health risk factor? Like what's going on? And then when I started realizing that they were equating children to being more important than adults, I'm like, whoa. No, not happening. Because all life has value. All life has value. But then you've got these stuck up snobby kids, and they're not just rich kids. A lot of these kids are coming from the middle class and the lower class. So, when we tend to think of snobs and not caring about people, it is a very common mistake that just comes from the rich. That is not true. I never thought that way because, some of the biggest snobs I've ever met are from the middle class. Seriously, from the middle class. Why? Because they are complacent. Like, they don't make enough money to be rich, but they're thanking God every day that they're not poor and that they're not like those people. That's the problem with part of our middle class here in Oklahoma, but as well as in the United States. I'm not against the middle class. I think it's great to have a middle class. It's just we've gotten off track in terms of how to properly raise our children because it's like there's not as strong a work ethic, and there should be a very strong work ethic. And I just think it's really sad when it's like I would have never thought to hear that young men don't want to help at their job in Oklahoma. I can see laziness in other states because I've met people from other states. But to hear that from Oklahoma, I was just really surprised by that because, to live in Oklahoma, as I've said before, you've got to be tough to live here because we have extreme weather. Like when I woke up this morning, we were having torrential rains. Like when it rains here, it's not just a pleasant little drizzle like in London or something, or in like a little village. No. We either have all or nothing. So whenever we get rain, we are very appreciative because we tend to have droughts here. So it's one of those things that I'm just surprised whenever someone from my home state is lazy because you can't afford to be lazy and live here in Oklahoma because it's just the weather is so crazy. Like you have to be alert. I don't mean you have to be hysterical, not by any means, but you have to be tough to live in a tough area. It's almost like with people that live in hurricane land or hurricane country, whatever it's called. Those people are very unique in that, they know what a hurricane looks like. They're not scared by it, but they know what to do if one hits. They know when to leave and when not to leave. There's always those crazy people that refuse to leave even though they should leave. But it's just one of those things that I'm just surprised at laziness. I really am, considering that usually it's in the conservative states where we work a lot because we really have no choice but to work a lot. Because the industries that we have are not always stable. Like we are predominantly oil and gas driven. Well, oil and gas, as you guys know, it goes up and it goes down. So if it goes up, everything's great. Everybody's, having a high life. That's wonderful. But when it goes down, there are a lot of people that their companies and their jobs go belly up. And they have to look for employment elsewhere. So that's why there's a lot of temporary employment that shifts from one job to another or one industry to another because sometimes it's hard to stay within your industry when it's very volatile, when it's not consistent. So I just want to be clear about that. Whenever I'm saying, hey, this isn't safe for children, when I say that, I'm not excluding adults, not by any means, because I know what it's like to be viewed like that, and I didn't realize that that's why people were using that term. They were using that term to put to make it seem like children are more important than adults when they're not. We're equals. Because if you raise your child that they are more important than someone else, then you're basically raising a snob. And what do you think they're going to be like when they're an adult? I mean, we can definitely break the cycle of snobbiness, but it starts in the home. And it starts with whoever is training and molding their child into what they want to be, right? So I just wanted to be clear about that, because I know sometimes people can, I'll just say it, they get easily offended and they misinterpret things. So being that I know how some people are misinterpreting things because it's come to my attention over the years, that's why I try and correct it as I go along, as opposed to just not saying it. I don't know how else to describe it. But I think it's better to address things as soon as possible, as opposed to later down the road when you've got a bigger, murkier mess, which is what we do not want, right? But anyway, for the next podcast, we will either discuss the 1899 Rivers and Harbors Act, or we will talk about FIFRA, which is FIFRA, or maybe we'll talk about these Superfund sites located in the state of Indiana. But until next time, I pray that you're happy, healthy, and whole, that you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.